Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you and welcome to this webinar on how women in extractives can strengthen the NDC climate achievements in Nigeria. We appreciate you all for your time and thank you all for taking the time to attend this webinar today. I'm sure you will learn a lot, and it is without further ado that we officially start this webinar. And I would like to welcome to the floor Ms. Bekeme Masade Olola, the Chief Executive of CSR-in-Action, to give the welcome address. Welcome.
Hi, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. It says the host has stopped my video, so I can't. So, I mean, it's fine by me if you, the host, don't want for us to be seen, but I would have thought people would prefer that. Okay, so I'll just carry on. I'm sure that we'll sort it out before the actual panelists come on board. Thank you all for joining us on this session on how women in extractives can strengthen NDC climate achievements in Nigeria. Thank you to the Ministry of Environment for approaching us to help organize this workshop. Thank you to our panelists, Mr. Huzi Michelia, who's the National Coordinator, UN. Hello?
Go ahead.
Okay, so you were sharing the screen and then you stopped, so I wondered if something had happened.
No.
Okay, to Mr. Huzi Michelia, who's the National Coordinator for UN Pndc program in Nigeria. Thank you to Nere Miko, the Vice Chairman, Kian Smith and Co. A very, very inspiring Chief Executive and company which started the first gold refinery in West Africa. Welcome to Hansatu Digbite. Hansatu is the Chief Executive of WIMBIZ, and as we all know, WIMBIZ plays a very powerful role in bringing women business owners together. And welcome to Engineer Janet Adeyemi. I hope she's joined us now. She's in the US and you know, time isn't that great for her, but she promised to be here. So I hope she's here on this discussion as well. She's the founder of Women in Mining in Nigeria, and Women in Mining in Nigeria, you know, is a coalition of women entrepreneurs in mining. And, you know, it's a very useful platform for hearing women issues, for congregating women in the bid to sort of provide them the sort of support that we need. As we all know, women issues permeate across all sectors. And that's why I'm glad that we're here today having a climate change session around women. A lot of people say, oh, wow, it's another women thing. How about us men? And we say, you know what, equity is when, you know, there's an equal platform, for want of a better phrase, for people to stand on. So men have enjoyed these benefits for years, and this is why you would celebrate the achievement of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and celebrate her husband for, in quote, allowing her to excel. So these are some of the challenges that women face. And so back to our discussion, it's also not a very popular discussion. I was talking with Hansatu and a number of other key stakeholders to this project, and I'm like, you know what, climate change isn't something that I'm very comfortable about. So I'm hoping that today's session will help us to demystify it. Now, the ministry sponsored by UNDP, of course, would like to have this conversation because climate change is crucial to the discussion that we have around sustainable development. You can't be talking sustainable development without throwing in climate. because and the environment is very, very important. The way that we treat the environment is very important. And this was why the Paris Agreement was entered into in December 2015, which is a legally binding international treaty on climate change. So basically what it is that it sets a global framework to avoid dangerous climate change by limiting global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. And, you know, Nigeria signed on to this in 2017, I believe. And I'm sure that Huzi will tell us how well we have done with this. We must bear in mind that, you know, detrimental effects of climate change can be felt even in the short term through natural hazards such as landslides, floods, hurricanes that we get plenty of in this part of the world. And in the long term, through more gradual degradation of the environment, you know, and it affects men and women differently, to be honest. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, women are more responsible for gathering and producing food, collecting water, sourcing fuel for heating and cooking and all of that. And with climate change, it makes it even more difficult and hazardous for women with extreme weather events such as droughts and floods. And these have a greater impact on the poor and most vulnerable. And as we know, in the extractive sector, we have a lot of that, of a lot of poor and vulnerable. And many of the women who have to play in that space do so, you know, do the very hazardous work without the right equipment and for less pay than their male counterparts. So today, as we have this discussion, I want us to basically start thinking about how we contribute or help to manage climate impacts. And we must remember that the majority of biodiversity decline has a disproportionate impact primarily on the poor and vulnerable people in countries like ours. So for example, declining fish populations that may have major implications for artisanal miners, artisanal communities who may depend on fish. We all know what is happening across the country with regard to degradation. We all know the many other challenges that communities have to face. So what can we do as productive members of our society in the way that we do business, in the way that we carry on our everyday lives? So welcome again to this session on the role that women can play in managing climate impacts. And I hope that both the panelists and the attendees garner a lot from the session. Welcome again, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bekame Masode-Oluola, for that welcome address. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, it is with honor, I would like to introduce the next speaker. But before that, I just want to mention the ground rules, which is that if you have any questions, if you have any comments or contributions that you would like to make, please just wait till the end of the session, take your notes down, and we'll be taking questions at the end of the session when we finish speaking when all the speakers have had the chance to speak. So please do ensure that you take note of your questions if you have any, and we would address them at the end of the speaking session. I would like to therefore introduce our next speaker today. Our next speaker is, pardon me please. Our next speaker for today will be Mr. Huzi Mishela. Mr. Huzi has a legal background working as an independent consultant on policy and legal issues on climate change, energy, and environment. He has a master's degree program in environmental resource management and is supporting the Department of Climate Change of the Nigerian Federal Ministry of Environment. As you mentioned, he is the national coordinator for the Undp NDC support program in Nigeria. And He has a wealth of experience working with governments, including African Development Bank, the Ministry of Environment, Zimbabwe, to develop a national position on strategic approach to transitioning to a low carbon economy, and a policy advisor to Winrock International USA. He is equally consultant to reputable international NGOs, including South-South-North, South Africa, International Development, International Center for Energy, Environment and Development, the Friends of the Earth Environment of Nigeria, Henrik Boyle Foundation, and he is also a member, was also a member of the World Bank UNEP Finance Initiative Study Team on Black Carbon Finance Study Group. Welcome, Mr. Uzi.
Thank you very much, the moderator, and thank you, Bekeme, for inviting us to join in this session. And I also welcome my fellow panelists, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. So I will quickly, in my daily life, I work for a consulting firm called Clean Energy, and work mostly on policy and legal issues in climate change, environment, and energy. But for the purposes of this meeting, I also act as the national coordinator for the Undp NDC support program. I will give a brief overview of what the program does. So I have shared my slides earlier on with Dami. I think if you will be kind enough to share it so that I can quickly run through it. And the NDC, UNDP NDC support program is one of the UNDP initiatives to support developing countries to implement the Paris Agreement. So Nigeria happens to be one of the countries that the UNDP is supporting, primarily to set the fundamentals right in trying to implement the 2015 NDC, which Nigeria has committed to. And the NDC, for purposes of those who perhaps are having the first encounter with this process, the NDC stands for the Nationally Determined Contribution. And this is one of the, so can you go to the next slide, please? So the Paris Agreement generally have what is called collective goals, which all the parties to the convention have signed off. And this is a collective global aspiration to reduce, limit global mean temperature, like Bekeme rightly said, to below 2 degrees. And of course, there is also a global goal for adaptation, meaning that countries should embark to build their resilience to climate change issues. And then, of course, the third global collective goal is the mobilization of resources to undertake most of the actions that are embedded in most of the national policies and strategies of respective party countries. However, it also have a distinct feature, which is the individual efforts. And this individual efforts is embodied in what is called the nationally determined contribution, which we commonly call the NDCs. And these are actually just climate change plans, which countries normally adopt. It's voluntarily, is self-determined, which is countries determine what they want to do in terms of curbing the greenhouse gas emissions, and mostly to also increase their resilience. And of course, most of the NDCs that countries develop are based on national priorities. In the case of Nigeria, it was based on our national economic development and priorities, and of course, meeting the SDG goals. So at the end of the day, when you aggregate all of these NDCs which countries have committed to, they represent the world's collective efforts to address climate change. And of course, it's been said that since 2012, even if you put all the NDCs, the commitment under the NDCs of all the respective parties together, they are still not enough to address the global climate change challenge. Next slide, please. So Article 3 of the Paris Agreement actually sets the fundamentals for what the NDC. So each party is expected to prepare, communicate, and maintain the NDCs. And these NDCs are successive, and they are supposed to be progressive, meaning that if you commit, you don't backslide. You need to increase ambition instead of trying to reduce ambition. And of course, it has a five-year life cycle. So for countries that have a timeline of 2025, they are expected to file an entirely new NDC. But for countries that have a time frame for 2030, they are expected to update their NDC. And for those of you who understands what Nigerian NDC is, when it was filed in 2015, is the commitment that Nigeria made. It has a time frame of up to 2030, meaning that Nigeria had committed that it will reduce a certain percentage of its emission to within the time frame of 2030. So under the Paris rules, for those countries with time frame of 2030, including Nigeria, we are supposed to every 5 years update. So, and 2020 being 5 years from 2015 is a revision year, and we're currently revising the 2015 NDC. Next slide, please. So this is what the outlook of the 2015 Nigerians NDC looks like. Nigeria had said under the its NDC that it will conditionally reduce its emission from 5 sectors by 45%. For conditionally meaning that if it receives international support from either bilateral or multilateral, and unconditionally, without support within its domestic resources, it will reduce 20%. And this reduction will come from, one, it aspires that it will end gas flaring by 2030. It will improve its grid electricity by off-grid solar electricity by 13 gigawatts. And then it will also increase the level of efficiency in our national grid. And then, of course, it will do a lot of switching from cars to buses and efficient transportation system. And then, of course, lastly, do smart agriculture and reforestation. So the 5 sectors are oil and gas, power, transport, and agriculture, and of course, power. So this is the outlook of what the 2015 NDC looks like. How much has been achieved? Unfortunately, no assessment has really been conducted as to what percentage of that 20% has been achieved. But government had actually put in some mechanisms in the process, including, of course, the activities is undertaken under the NDC program, which I will briefly outline. Next slide, please. So like I said, this NDC support program is catalytic. It's supposed to provide financial and technical assistance to countries to try to integrate climate issues into their national sustainable economic plans so that it can meet the Paris Agreement. It was launched in 2015. Nigeria happens to be one of the countries, and the program is actually funded by the European Union, the government of Germany, and Spain. So if you look at the logos at the end of this slides, you can see the supporting and funding partners to this program. Next slide, please. So why are we interested? Why women specifically? I think the Paris Agreement in the preamble acknowledged that and emphasized that gender equality and women empowerment is paramount in the issues relating to dealing with climate change. And of course, parties are also encouraged to take appropriate measures so that they can increase public participation, increase access to information, and recognize the importance of respect of enhanced action under the, including, of course, a whole of society kind of approach, meaning that nobody should be left behind. And of course, we know that, like Bekeme rightly said, women are disproportionately affected by the impacts of climate change, but it is also believed that women are change agents, and they also have solutions to climate issues. And therefore, it is important not only to get them to participate, but to get them really involved in the processes, both in the development of the strategies that will take care of our commitments and in the implementation. And therefore, this program specifically wants to engage women using existing women platforms like the one we're currently using, and of course, other interested parties that I'm sure their members are represented here. And of course, it's also to seek coordination so that we create the necessary linkages between climate change and gender issues and ensure that the NDC is properly rooted in all that is going to be taking place. And of course, to create inclusivity and ensure that successful development outcomes are reflective of gender equality. And finally, to ensure that if government says it wants to do something, we know that women are they are very vocal and they are persistent and they can hold government accountable, especially in this fight against climate change. And of course, it will also ensure that the NDC is fully prioritized in government activities. And of course, mining, which is one of the activities under the industry, because industry is one of the 5 sectors under which Nigerian NDC had prioritized. Mining is one of those activities, and there is need for us to engage women that are involved in this extractive industry, considering the fact that it's a high energy intensive industry, and it's also high emission. And of course, it also has the potentials to reduce greater amount of emission if the kind of smart actions are taken. Next slide. So I won't bore you with all of this. These are actually the focus of the NDC program. The second slide, the second bullet says increase private sector participation. And under that particular work stream, we have what we call reaching out to women business leaders. And the idea is to ensure that existing, because we don't want to recreate the wheel, we want to ensure that women that are already in these 5 sectors or having to do their businesses and their influences, and they can mobilize both political attention and also policy direction or policy implementation. We want to engage them at the highest level. And I think Hansatu will bear us witness that in 2019, when we started this program, I actually paid a personal visit to Wimbis, and we had a roundtable with some of their team. Unfortunately, we weren't able to push. Perhaps this provides us an opportunity to reset that particular engagement which we had started, and hopefully see how we can take it forward. But in this process, we have so far carried out, like we've established women working groups. So far, this is the 5th of the round webinars that we are undertaking. We've had 2 webinars with women groups, general one. Then in the last 3 weeks, we had specific engagement with women in the energy sector, with women in the media, and of course, the current this engagement with women in the mining extractive industry. So the idea is for us to ensure that women are fully informed on what the NDCs are, and perhaps also explain the expectations, and also try to understand their challenges in their day-to-day dealings, particularly in their operations, and see how the NDC can be structured in a way to help and support their work. Next slide, please. So the NDC support program had 4 cardinal areas of intervention. One, finance is crucial. Therefore, there is need for us to understand what kind of strategy we need to adopt and the investment plan. So one of the outputs of the program is to develop a climate change financial strategy and an investment plan. The second one is the role of business. Private sector is crucial. We therefore need to engage private sector, because we think they are not only the engine of growth, and therefore the intervention during the private sector intervention, we have created 6 business roundtables across the 6 geopolitical zones. We've already had engagement using the chambers of commerce, the NASIMA, and the local trade unions in those 6 geopolitical zones. We've had meetings with them, we've communicated when the NDCs are, and we also understand their feelings, particularly in the terms of what is their expected role, how do they get finance, and how do they actually get engaged. And on these slides, you see that we have the establishment of a climate registry. The issue of data has been very crucial. People don't know where to get information, and therefore it becomes very difficult for people to even understand what all of this is all about. So under this particular stream of work, currently a climate registry has been established and is domiciled in the Department of Climate Change, and it's already been stimulated, and now they're in the effort of trying to populate it with all the information, climate-related information or activities that are taking place in the last 2 years, so that we can have a robust kind of information place where you can, on the touch of a button, you can retrieve some information. It might not be as robust as it's required, but it's a good start. And of course, we are hoping that as the implementation of the NDC continues, this registry will be made so robust and digitalized and become user-friendly. And of course, the last intervention under this program is that there are too many governments, initiatives running in silos. We have the SDG in the Office of the Special Assistant of the President. We have the Economic Recovery Plan in the National Planning Commission. we have the disaster risk reduction in the NEMA, and we have the NDC in the Ministry of Environment. And these are all supposedly government intervention, but they're not talking to each other. There is just no point of convergence. And we think that you cannot, because climate change is cross-cutting, the SDG 2, and of course, even disaster risk is fact. In fact, the disaster risk is the bullhorn of adaptation. So you cannot, and of course, all of this has a way of having a negative impact on the economy. So we cannot be pursuing an economic plan that is not climate friendly, is not climate proofed, and is not disaster risk proofed. So we thought that there should be some kind of socialization of this global agenda into. So currently what we're using a template that has been developed by the UNDP of mainstreaming the SDG, NDC's disaster risk into economic plan. And what we're doing is we're using the targets in these three initiatives, benchmarking it against the ARGP and its successive document, and see how they can be mainstreamed into a national economic plan. So that once you take the national economic document, the NDC will be reflected, the SDG will be reflected, and of course the disaster risk, so that there is no need to keep duplicating these efforts and then wasting resources and dissipating energy. So this is what the NDC support program is all about. However, there is another intervention. Next slide, please. So this other one, climate promise, and what is called the NDC partnership climate enhancement package are actually targeted purely, they are revision focused. The NDC support program that I earlier mentioned and I gave an overview is focused on implementation and setting the fundamentals for a very robust implementation. And like I told you, the NDC is being revised in 2020. So the UNDP also has this climate promise, and of course the NDC partnership program. Those two are actually revision focused. So they are activities that are being undertaken under these two programs that are just focused on the revision of the NDC. So under that, I highlighted it in red. Currently, a comprehensive gender assessment is being undertaken of all the 5 sectors, including, of course, the 2 new sectors of water and waste are being included. And of course, we are also trying to develop and articulate capacity building specifically focused for women and different women groups. And perhaps at the end of this day, we will try to understand the kind of needs that women in the extractive industry will know their needs will be, so that we can integrate it and tailor-make it into the capacity building that is currently being developed. So I will skip this particular 2 slides. So can you skip this? I'm sure the organizers will share these slides with participants, and you can see these are the overview of the activities that are being carried under the climate promise, which is focused only on the current revision. And then of course the climate action enhancement package under the NDC partnership, which is also focused on revision. So under this CAP, we have 10 different international institutions that are supporting Nigerians in various activities. We have the UNEP is supporting Nigeria to develop a capacity building. UNDP is increasing women's leaders implementation through the existing platform. Food and Agriculture is supporting development of tools, particularly in the forestry. African Development Bank is supporting private sector intervention with specific focus on SMEs. Islamic Development Bank is supporting the integration of subnational in the next slide, please. And then ARENA has already conducted an energy balance. GIZ, which is a German organization, is conducting investment analysis for off-grid electricity. And then, of course, we're doing some work on clean cook stove, developing a legal framework on trying to ensure that this thing is not only left in the realm of policy, but is cast in some kind of legislation. And of course, doing a new vulnerability assessment to understand what new risks do we have from 2015 to now, including, of course, the issues of COVID. And then we have also support from the German government for an economic advisor to support government in the post-COVID recovery plan. So all these activities are ongoing, and we're hoping that by the end of March, a first draft of the revised document will be ready. We will share it with all participants. And by April, we will do a validation, and most of you will also be invited so that you can take a look at what Nigeria had proposed in the revised NDC so that you can make your comments. Next slide, please. I think The next one is the issue of COVID and the challenge it posed to us, including, of course, your activities in the extractive industry. Next slide. And then next slides, what next? How can women in the extractive industry be organized to get involved and contribute to the NDC implementation? And what platform can be most appropriate? And then what are the capacity building needs and how can we help you to deliver it? And what are your likely challenges and how can we try to remove it? So thank you very much. And I hope that we've provided enough information, but I will be on standby to take questions if necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your presentation. And okay, I think I'll just address some of the questions that have been raised in the chat box. So one question was, is there a constitutional frame of reference in Nigeria that guarantees equality according to a gender approach? Hello, Ms. Oates, can you hear me? I think, yeah, we'll just address the questions at the end. Okay, so I will introduce the next speaker. The next speaker is our next speaker is Ms. Nere Emiko, who is the Managing Director and Vice Chairman of Care Smith Trade and Co. Limited. She serves as the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Care Smith Trade and Co. Limited, a company involved in mining consulting, mineral concession management, minerals trading, and brokerage. Its mining portfolio and mineral expertise is primarily on gold. And in 2018, Ken Smith was granted the first gold refinery license with further plans to open first gold refinery in Nigeria with its initial operations, which kicked off in Ogun State. She projects that her company will produce a capacity of 3 tons per month of 99.99% gold and 1 ton per month production of 99.99% silver when completed, and also has the capacity to provide more than 500,000 jobs in 2 years by supporting its suppliers in the bid to become a registered, a registered business entity in the mining sector. Ms. Emiko is working to put Nigeria on the map as a destination place for mining through her work at Ken Smith. Let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Emiko.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. So I'm here. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, very good. So my name is Nere. It's a pleasure to see you all. Thank you for the introduction. I think you see my video, yes. So we are in the mining sector. We are also now in processing as well and refining. And just to talk a bit about the current activities and how they affect climate change. So a little bit on how our activities affect climate change. Mining, I think everyone does understand the impact it has on the environment, climate. But more so refining, I think is recently where people had concerns. So in 2019, we went through extensive EIA, being the first, I guess I'll say the first of this kind of project. And it was extensive and it was good. We got our certificate October 2019. And I think the two biggest concerns for impact on climate and environment was about emission. And the first thing I would say is that we're mercury free. We don't deal with any gold that has mercury in it, so there's no mercury emission. But at the end of the day, we're very green. The effluent that is a byproduct at the end from refining, the only two things you can end up extracting, water and copper hydroxide. And copper hydroxide, in the end, you could extract the copper, and the hydroxide goes into fertilizers as a byproduct. So really on the refining side, people are usually very surprised that our process is not really contributing anything of concern to climate. So it's more about mining, I think I want to speak about in this avenue here. So SDG 13, one thing we've had to be concerned about are SDG goals. SDG 13 is about urgent action to combat climate change. And it was interesting to hear earlier about women in mining. There's not very, very many women in mining, but I would say this, most of the women that are mining in Nigeria are usually small scale miners or artisanal miners, and they're mining in groups. And I think a big issue for them really is water. A lot of times they use water supply because of they don't have much income, much capital, as you say, for their mining projects. So a lot of times the impact really is on water bodies. So I think one thing that's good there for urgent action is finding different mining and processing solutions that don't involve using natural resources like water. The other thing I'll say that we're finding is how to engage, especially the women in the communities, with, we call them mine farms, reforestation, or I think the right term I read today, earlier from Mr. Michel, was about smart agriculture. We call them mine farms. How in the process of mining do we also find ways to support farming activities? So that's really what we want to report. It's about mining. The role of women in mining is twofold. You're having the women who are involved in the extractives, small scale mines, artisanal mining, being impacted by, should I say, maybe not inefficient and sometimes poor processing technique, have been using the rivers. But now working with a lot of companies and NGOs on smarter and environmentally friendly processing methods, and also mine farms. So short and sweet, this is what we have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Amiko, for that introduction and that quick summary of the current activities and challenges that you face and other women in the mining industry face in addressing climate change in Nigeria. Thank you so much for that session. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, it is with this I would like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Honorable Engineer Janet Adeyemi, and she'll be speaking on the opportunities for women to address climate change in Nigeria. As earlier mentioned, Honorable Engineer Janet Adeyemi is the president and founder of Women in Mining in Nigeria. She is a researcher and advocate for global best practices in public-private partnerships. Focused public-private partnership transactions focused on accelerating infrastructure development in emerging markets. She has over 40 years experience at the front line of environmental, water resources management, engineering, works and mining, where she is pioneering inclusion of women in the mining sector, as the founder of Women of Mining in Nigeria. She is a registered professional engineer and public servant with political acumen and a burning desire to contribute to the development of Nigeria. She is well respected for integrity, ethical behavior, excellence, political judgment in public service and professional career. Welcome, Madam Janet Adeyemi.
Hello, how are you? Good
Very
morning.
well, thank you.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Uh, Permit me to apologize for my voice, for everything. I've been under the weather lately, and it's because this is very important, and that's why I'm stepping out. But somehow I equally seize this opportunity to congratulate the organizers of this program for putting it together. Like the previous speaker has said, and then Mr. Michelia, I believe that this is a very welcome development because we've gone on quite a number of international conferences, and especially in South Africa, put together by WEAV, where we had a lot, you understand, discussions on women and climate change. And you find out that much has not been done in our country. So hearing about this, because I'm just hearing about this for the first time, you understand? And when I saw it, I said, no matter what, because I'm grieving, but I thought I should just step out and listen and participate as much as I can. Climate change is a major issue confronting everybody, and I will take it up from a layman's point of view, because when you talk about climate change, the technicalities in terms of symbols make it extremely frightening to even follow, because if you don't know, you start hearing CHG, what is CHG to a layman, what is UNFCCC, what is all these things. So, but from a layman's point of view, I'll go back to say, when you start seeing rain fall in January, when you start seeing snow covering places, even the so-called developed country, you understand, being disorganized. I'm currently in Houston, and what we witness, if you come around Houston, everywhere is so ugly because of what snow did in the last week, which they were not prepared for. So you find out that so something is shifting. So even if you don't believe before, you see increase in water level in the seas. You understand? You see flooding in unusual places. So obviously, something is happening. And we've been told that the ice, that has been in the Arctics have been melting for such a long time. So these are indications that the earth itself is warming. So what is causing the warming of this earth is not simply our activities. And so I believe it's not even amongst women alone. It should be in every sector, from primary school to secondary school to tertiary institution to laywoman to everybody, so that we need all to observe what we do to ensure that climate change is addressed. Climate change should now be inculcated as a way of life beyond what the COP people are talking about. It should be a way of life for every sector. So back to what we are. Women in mining is a group of professional women, you understand, both professional and lay and ordinary women. Ordinary women who are laborers, who serve the industry, who don't even know what they are doing, women who exert all their energy to break stones, who don't have access to equipment as artisans, and you have highly skilled women, you understand, like the Nere, you understand, who made a presentation before I came in, and likewise you have highly professional women, you understand, who are there working as technocrats. So it's a mixed bag. And the women in mining is part of the International Women in Mining Network. Gradually, we are all coalescing and coming together. You have the West African women in mining now recognized by ECOWAS and UMOA. You have the African women in mining, and gradually at the international level, we are all coming together to say, see, let's dovetail into a body where we can all be talking with one voice. So again, I'm happy to be here. So women in mining, as you know, mining itself, let's go back to what mining is. Mining itself in Nigeria is not yet deep-rooted. In the last few years, government has been trying to do all manner of things to get it. So when the mining itself not yet deep-rooted, you can't even be talking about methods of enhancing. So the issue of climate change is coming at the right time, that is at the foundational period when people are building up, and so it can equally be quickly impacted into some of the policies, you understand, that are coming up. Climate change affects mining seriously because of the energy requirement. The energy requirement, you understand, shoots up, you understand, the heating of the ecosystem, you understand, through mining, because all activities, whether physical, whether operational, you understand, are all affected by mining. So I believe that to address these issues need some smart ways of doing things. And some of the smart ways are gradually coming up, and which governments, investors, and miners themselves, you understand, have roles to play in. In terms of equipment, you find out that biofuels are no longer too fashionable. Technologies are shifting. So the technologies that are shifting, you understand, must be looked into and be inculcated into mining processes. That is where support must come in, because you find out that women in the mining sector work mostly in the downstream, that is value chain addition. Of course, some of them are in the upstream that are doing well. So in addressing all these things, you cannot actually separate and say, oh, no, you want to look at one sector and leave the other sector, the other sector, that is whether upstream, midstream, side stream, or downstream. So all sectors must be addressed in terms of energy efficiency and output. How? Looking at physical equipment themselves, equipment manufacturers. Equipment manufacturing is gradually changing, looking at how to use electric energy, how to use renewable energy, you understand, solar energy, such that the outputs, the burning, the decarbonization. Decarbonization is the issue. As long as you reduce the carbon content going into the atmosphere, as long as we can capture them and reduce them, obviously we'll be able to meet the 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade targets pre the industrial revolution level where they are targeting. So to do all these things require designs of such equipment. And how do you design such equipment? I believe it goes beyond women in mining. In our engineering schools right now, because we are now trying to look at cells, not girls alone, you understand, that is educational cells, where you start looking at inculcating these things, and you see competitions coming out daily where students are coming up. The other day we saw one young guy who displayed a solar box, you understand, that you can use to heat and do everything while on the wheel, doing your business on the wheel. Such promotions can come up with designs, you understand, that will not reduce the level of diesel being used. Then even in terms of road construction, what kind of road construction are you looking at? Because when you are in building a dam, you must equally be conscious of the processes. In mining, I mean, you must be conscious of the processes of what you do. Water is key in mining. And so water stress can lead to climate change. Flooding can lead to climate change. So how do you strike a balance? What do you do in your mine designs? These are things that must be incorporated into every aspect of it. Then in terms of processing, in your processing, what kind of equipment are you using? You understand? Is it these days, if you look at there's a mine in Brazil where they come up with a conveyor system where materials are moved, you understand, from the pits directly to the processing thing without going through the road, to impact less on the road, so that the issue of using, you understand, combustion, combustion coming from biodiesel engines, you understand, are eliminated completely. So these are some of the things we can look into. And then the cost itself, factor in cost, because when you create stress, when water stresses are created, how does it affect the people? These are sources of friction. Women are most impacted because women are the ones who take care of households. When the water is not available, what happens to these women? Then most women work in the mining sector, either as laborers or anything. When the environment is heated, who suffer heat stroke, who suffer all these things. So these are all some of the key issues that I believe are so important in the mining sector that has to be looked into. And I'm so excited when Mr. Michelia talked about roundtable issue, because in the ministry, in women in mining, for instance, We have technical leaders, you understand, whose responsibilities are just this, such that if we are able to engage our sector, we'll be able to sit down, work as a team, even work in tandem with other, if we have to work with other countries, if we work with, because there's no country now where mining takes place. Every mining jurisdiction have what you have women in mining. And so some of these groups can come together where we are sitting down, and then whatever information you need to pass, whatever strategies you need to pass, because as we know, and which I keep on saying, some might not, some might look as if, oh, it's hurting. No, the passage of civil servants is very, very rapid. You spend 35 years, but the 35 years, you get exposed to these things maybe within a 10-year break. And within that 10-year break, you are off the system. I remember when the issue of climate change was newly introduced to Nigeria, myself and Professor Okonwe, we are consultants, you understand, on adaptations, adaptability. But what happened? He's retired. The things have shifted. Another face is there. So that is why it's always good you domicile and work and involve NGOs, you understand, in what you are doing, so that when these things are grounded within the system, it keeps on circulating, knowledge keeps on moving, rather than, oh, this is a civil service thing, they have all the information. When they are retired, they are retired. So at times, some of them are not equally opportune, you understand, to come back and use the skills they've gotten, whether as consultants or anything, knowing the way the system is structured. So I want to really, really appreciate you that we in Women in Mining, we are open, you understand, to some of these things you are talking about, because there's the need to actually address this temperature issue. And other countries are doing, some countries, you understand, are doing well, you understand, in ensuring that they've been able to meet their NDC recommendation, and they're even advancing more on achieving more, you understand, making additional inputs to make sure that they reach the 58% target, you understand, which is expected from the COP gathering. So to me, I believe that we in Women in Mining, we are set, we are ready, we are eager, you understand, to work with you. But in working with you, you should be mindful of the fact that mining in Nigeria, like I said, going back to my introductory speech, is that mining in Nigeria is just trying to find its feet. Investors are even not fully here. There, people are still looking. Is it because so many things, you know, to make to increase our perception index needs a lot of things. Thank God for Fayemi and President Buhari, you understand, who built up on whatever President Jonathan had done. And so the index is increasing gradually. At least now we have some investors coming and looking in our direction, but it could be better. So if the foundation is well addressed, and then the availability of funds, their regular capacity building, you understand, to do mining as it should be practiced, to have access to data, to be able to do the other needed things, you understand. Capacity building is so essential because technologies keep changing. Look at COVID, for instance. With COVID, we now know that we have to change ways of doing things. Digital markets, for instance, is very, very important. When you have digital markets where your supply chains, and that's why I like what Nere is trying to do, you understand, you have what to do, like tracing to the origin, to know what and what it is, who are you working with, from where is the mine, is the products you are getting coming up, because some mineral resources will be thrown up, you understand, with smart technologies, because you know that climate change, we address smart technology in the mining sector. And you find out that some minerals will become more attractive than the other. If you are shifting and you are looking at renewable energy, for instance, you are looking at the use of electric cars, you are looking at, these days we carry our phones and we see all manner of things happening, that is AI, artificial intelligence and things like that. That tells you that there will be pressure on the use of nickel, cobalt, palladium and things like that. So nothing is wasted. It's tied to sustainability, it's tied to quite a number of things. So there's a lot to do in that sector to build up the capacity of people to have a thorough understanding of this. And these individuals cannot do. These individuals cannot sort out. So there's a need for this collaboration. And most times when you talk to UNDP or you talk to some of these funding organizations for things like this, they start talking, you know, again, they throw up their own technical blocks, you understand, that are not supportive, even encouraging the initial in meeting the needs of the various NGOs. So I believe that maybe with Mr. Mashalia now addressing us directly, maybe this will help, you understand, to build a bridge, a formidable bridge or linkage, you understand, with your organization to be able to work with you in this area. Because there are so many things being thrown up, you understand, as a result of climate change. It's affecting the whole structure. Because even the kind of minerals, you understand, that will be in the forefront. You are talking about, well, for example, the issue of water license and mining. Water is very crucial. As we speak in Nigeria, how many homes have access to water? How many states have water coming from their tap? I don't want to mention states, but there are some states that I know in the last 20 years, the public tap has not been functioning. All the dams have collapsed, and yet you need water, you understand, to be able to mine most times. Where do you get water? The water licenses, what kind of water? The water, are they being polluted further for additional treatment, additional stress on the water? So how do we address this? How do we build dams? Do we think of recycling of water? Do we think of treatment of water? Or do we think of, oh, how do we build our dams, you understand, to make sure we reduce evapotranspiration, evaporation, you understand, to ensure that water is conserved? So these are all things that has to be done. And these are things where you have to bring in CEOs of mining companies, you understand, to address some of these issues. Then the issue, you know, going back to the issue of heating, you understand, what methods are you using there? Because when the breakdown time of your workers, the miners working in the system, is high, or they are subjected to what do you call this, meningitis, because of high temperature or other forms of diseases, is it good for the system? Are these things not even responsible for the various mutations and viruses that have been generated? For example, we've never been threatened this much, because we have to look at it. What are the causes of, under what temperatures, you understand, does these things, but for the various bacteria and viruses grow up? So the security of the lives of your staff, you understand, must equally be protected in an environment. So how do we do this? So these are all things that need to be factored into climate change issues, which we as an organization, we are ever ready. Because like I said, ordinarily, this time, this is my first outing in I don't think I'll even venture to come out about. I'm so passionate about this topic. I'm so interested about this topic that any day, anytime, we are willing, you understand, to discuss. And climate change issue is one thing I need to sound all over again, because I know we have people from various organizations, leaders that are probably listening. It is capital intensive, and we must put in fund, you understand, in the right place to address things, support investors, and then investors themselves, you understand, must be subcharged, you understand, in some areas, you understand, because most times we are still not, because we are not doing the right thing. People come, we just issue licenses, guidelines are not there. We are anxious, you understand, to start our mining industry and jumpstart it and say, oh, you know, we always like to compete and say, oh, we too, we are at this level. No, mining brings wealth and is the fastest way to poverty of any nation, because of the consequences, the environmental degradation, deforestation, you understand, that goes with it. Because you open up a whole lot of space, especially then you have pits all over the place. If the technology is not right, the cost of redoing, the cost of mitigation, the cost of, you know, restating that environment far outweighs whatever you could have made from it, because these are values that keep on changing, subject to market. So we need to get our assets right, such that at the end of the day, we don't destroy our ecosystem and subject every life to risk because of a collective wealth, because mining of resources is a collective wealth which we have to look into. So we don't say because we have the capital, we extract at the risk of a poor man in his home who don't have access to money. And at the end of the day, the mineral wealth is not even enjoyed, you understand, by that person. So thank you. I will wait, and when you throw questions, because it's a vast topic, then I will know which area you want me to really talk about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Adeyemi. Thank you, really. You know, I was going to mention earlier that you've been bereaved, but you did find time to be here today. Thank you so much. As usual, you've broken it down into the nitty-gritty. I counted on you to do that, and you did deliver. And you've spoken about quite a number of things about the need for collaboration. Women have over time, played very strongly in a professional capacity in, say, sustainability, for instance, or environmental advocacy. But sadly, as a result of the prevalent situation with women in society, I mean, it's hard enough getting funding for innovation, talk less of women who typically do not have as much access generally to certain professional resources. So access to finance is also very much of a big deal. And you talked about the relevance of getting top voices. You may be passionate about something and you may not necessarily have the power to do so. So there's the need for the big companies, the big CEOs to support this. Nere had spoken earlier, but I think that what would be important to hear, and which you've tried to shed more light on, is what the women in Nere's value chain, any women that she has at all, what they have to go through in order that we start considering some of the solutions to these challenges. I'm sure that we have questions. Dami had read one earlier, but before we take questions, I would be introducing Hansatu Adigbite. If Dami would just put up her profile. I'll invite Hansatu Adigbite to talk to us about how she thinks women can be supported. We understand that climate change can seem like a very esoteric topic for many. So it's like, what is this about? But as we've heard so far, it can be linked to everyday challenges that we face. We talked about the floods and the drought, food shortage, food security, and all of that. And we've talked about the fact that women play very much in the downstream. So it's in the very basic nitty-gritty aspects. And so so we have a number of women entrepreneurs in that space. So how can women be supported? We'll hear what ideas, considering that she is the CEO of the foremost women association in Nigeria. She's also an alumnus of Harvard Business School with an Action Learning Masters in Business Administration from Business School, Netherlands. And she's a UK certified trainer and associated stress consultant in life coaching. Don't worry, when you hear her talk, you believe all of that about life coaching. I tell her that, I pray for her gift of speaking. She has over 20 years professional experience in banking, entrepreneurship, and team building, consulting. And she's a training partner with Business School Netherlands International, a training associate with Howes Consulting Group, member of the BSN Alumni Governing Board, and currently serves as the Executive Director of Women in Business, in Management, Business, and Public Service, WIMBIZ, in Lagos. So, as Hansatu comes on board, as pointed out by Engineer DME, CSR-in-Action constantly works to harness these kinds of partnerships to reach a collective end that is beneficial to all. CSR-in-Action Advocacy, which is a non-profit arm, is actually registered as Corporate Social Responsibility Awareness and Advancement Initiative. So that's the core of the work that we do. We want to create awareness for certain things. Oftentimes we try to glamorize it in order to make it more palatable to everyday people so that we all start thinking about the contributions that we make to it. So how can women be supported during this time? Over to you, Hansatu.
Thank you so much, Bekeme. And thank you for all that introduction. When Bekeme contacted me on this topic, one of the things I said to Bekeme is that, this is not my area of strength. you know, we at WIMBIS, yes, we have women that are into the environment and all that. And she said, that is why you should be the one to speak on this thing. Because most women, and I did my research, most women, when you talk about climate change, in fact, one of the women just told me that it's like a joke. It's of no relevance to us in this season. So people just see it as so abstract, just so foreign to them. They don't see the relevance. They just see it as one of those discussions that usually people just have. It's just not in my preview. And then Bekeme said, that is why you need to be the one to talk about it, because by the time you research yourself and see the relevance and the impact on female entrepreneurs, on female executives and the rest, you will be able to now speak from a perspective of relevance to women in your own community. And so I did take up the challenge, and I did do a bit of my research, and I do commend the work that they are doing. And I also must commend Uzi Michelia, as he said, when they were starting in 2019, they did visit the WIMBIS headquarters, and we had a discussion. And what we did then was that we assigned women in our network that are into environment. And so they sat in for all the roundtables. But I'm glad to see that what has started small is still forging ahead, and the respect for the SDG 17 goals, partnership for goals, because that's what I'm seeing that is happening here. And WIMBIS as an organization, of course, we are focused on the SDG goal 5 and 10, reducing inequalities and gender equality. But then you see, when I looked at climate change, of course, climate change does affect our environment. And just like Engineer Adeyemi had said, women are the most impacted. So you see, locally, when we look at our entrepreneurs and our executives, we're all in our offices, we're all in town. And so for now, we are okay. But the truth of the matter is that there's direct and indirect impact on women when it comes to this climate change and all the issues it has on our communities. And one of the things I have realized is that, you know, we can have a woman now, for example, that is into manufacturing. Let me even narrow it down. Like our board chairman is into furniture manufacturing, for example. And the people in the rural areas, for example, are the ones that are into forestry and forestation. And due to the impact of climate change on our deforestation, you know, if the supply chain is affected, in the long run, you can't provide wood as a raw material in the cost that maybe exists, or it's not even available. And so you need to look at other ways of sourcing, or it will increase the price of production for furniture. And so even though right now it doesn't look as if the issue of forestation is a business, is of consequence to me as an individual, what happens is that within the supply chain, the day I need furniture, and maybe I'm furnishing my house, or I want to change my bed, or whatever it is, and I'm going to a company like Design Options, what would now happen to me is the price that maybe I had budgeted and the price that it becomes because of the impact of the environment on that business will be different. And so before we know it, we begin to feel the pinch of some of these challenges directly to us as consumers. And right now, there are so many things that are happening to the women that are deeply in maybe the agricultural sector, in the rural areas, those that are into fishery and all that as a result of the impact of climate change. And so you find out that all the pollution, be it flooding, erosion and all that, it's sieving into their land. And of course, with the need to move into spaces that are further away from their natural habitat, you find out that they're losing a lot. But again, there's a cost implication to that. And apart from the cost that affects them directly, there are so many things that affect women. It increases their poverty level. It increases the challenges they face, because now they are further from their raw materials or the areas that they have been working. So what now happens is that they are open to more attacks in terms of rape and so many of all these vices, social vices. And another thing that happens to a lot of our women is you find out that even their children experience direct and indirect impact of the things that happen to some of these women, and some of them even lose their lives as a result of these climate change issues. And obviously, we know what that does to a family when a woman is gone. But I'm highlighting all these things just to show the relevance to we as entrepreneurs and executives. One of the things WIMBIS is really known for, one of our programs that is of huge relevance to this initiative, now that I have listened to all the speakers, is our Women on Boards program. You see, I've heard all the speakers talking about policies and talking about things that government can do here and there. And I'm looking back at even WIMBIS as an organization. We have so many of our members, some have found themselves on boards. We're still advocating for women on boards. We're training them, we're mentoring them. And then you find out that the more women you have that are sitting on boards of organizations that are decision makers in this area of climate change, or even as decision makers or as chairmen of boards, there's a way that they can divert the attention of the board on the impact or the need for them to be involved in climate change, maybe have a fund to add that, or also sort of use their CSR initiatives and their CSR funding towards climate change initiatives. So it's important for us to note that the issue of even increasing the representation of women on boards is not something that should be an initiative for WIMBIS or the few women organizations that are focused on that, but it's something that requires collective action because it has the impact and the ability to increase the interventions when it comes to various environmental challenges that most of these businesses also create. So you'll find out that like all these carbon emissions, for example, most of our businesses in manufacturing and so many other areas may even be affecting the environment directly or indirectly. And so what happens is that by the time you have more of our decision makers realizing that impact, they can begin to look at safer ways to manufacture interventions on things that they can do that can even help the environment. But you need the decision makers in the room. And that is why even our Women in Politics program is important. Let's even get more women in legislature so that they can also be very instrumental in some of the laws that will impact some of these regulations or policies that need to be put in place to help our environment. We all know, just like the previous speakers have said, any kind of change and even any kind of government intervention takes time. So the more people we have that are speaking towards an intervention, the better it is for us. What else can women do? How can women be supported? Well, in listening to all the speakers, I have even seen opportunities, a lot of business opportunities, even for women. Opportunities that they can intervene in so that they can also help this environment. There are opportunities in renewable energy, opportunities in agriculture and smart agriculture, as we have learned today. In fact, I just heard from Engineer Adeyemi, opportunities in manufacturing of equipment. A lot of women would see that as capital intensive and all, but you know, some of us can rise up to the challenge and begin to say, look, let me even begin to look into these areas, look for partners and begin to do something about it. I see opportunities for women in media, women in communications, women in PR, because you see this area of climate change, a lot of women, this thing it just sounds so foreign to us. So there's a need to simplify it. There's a need to communicate it in a way that people can understand. And it is women that can also help with these communications. A lot of women, just like Guzi had said earlier, women have the ability to be able to communicate and push for things. And if women can do that on individual and corporate levels, then it's important for us to educate them so that more people are speaking about it. So there are opportunities to not only educate the women that are in the space of communications, but also to support them. There can be all manner of grant funding and interventions for women in business. And I recall Huzi, when they even came in 2019, they were ready to give a grant to a woman in an environment that can solve one or two of these problems. And so that for me is also a way that you can help some female entrepreneurs to proffer change on some of these existing challenges. So there's also a need for continuous sensitization and awareness campaigns for women across various localities nationally, not just for women and men anyway, but of course, our focus here today is what, how can women be supported? What can women do? I also would say that advocacy in itself is not enough. You know, we can advocate and nothing happens. We need to sort of devise a means of advocacy, pushing for implementation, and not only pushing for implementation, but holding all the relevant stakeholders accountable, because accountability is key. We have so many interventions. Huzi has said it earlier, that, you know, government has a lot of agencies working on a lot of things, a lot of silos. But one of the things I know with the private sector is that getting the private sector involved moves and pushes things faster, because the indices, the timelines that private sector work on is much faster, is more streamlined. We have tight management on projects and things like that. So I would say that the private sector intervention that we're talking about, and even the private sector funding that has been mentioned earlier, the need for it anyway, will require communicating to them, advocating, creating awareness, creating committees that can work on some of these things, and even finding ways to reward private sector organizations that are putting climate change and environmental challenges and issues at the forefront and at the border of whatever they're doing in terms of their CSR or their focus areas. And so we also need to take these things down to the community level. Of course, it's not just about talking at the boardroom level. We do that a lot, but again, we need to understand what the community is going through. We need to get some of the representatives to be part of the conversation for change, because it is one thing to proffer solutions according to communities, for different communities and different areas, but it's another thing to proffer the right solutions. And so we shouldn't sit on our boardroom tables and sort of design programs to address these things, but it's important for us to focus on different communities and different areas of impact and understand what the needs are, make the people and the women there to be a part of the process, so that what we are learning from them can help us create solutions that will be impactful. And so one of the things I just want to encourage our women, whether you're an executive on this call, whether you're an entrepreneur, is you can ask yourself the direct question of, what can I do? What can I do in my sector? How can I even plug into those sectors that are areas of focus, just as were highlighted earlier, the oil and gas sector, power, agriculture, transportation, and all. There are so many opportunities there. The question you're asking yourself now is, or you should be asking yourself is, what is the solution that I'm going to bring to the table? What technology can be adapted? What kind of manufacturing interventions can be put in there? How can we give information? In fact, I think Huzi was talking about, I keep referring to Huzi. You can see that I listened to your presentation a lot, but he was also talking about data collection and how there is not enough information. My dear sisters on this call, that is a business opportunity for somebody, because you can actually make that your focus to begin to get data and begin to get practical things that can be worked on by various individuals. And I would say that obviously we need more women in industries like mining, more women in the energy industry, more women in the power, smart agriculture, as has been said. So more women sort of diversifying and partnering and collaborating in some of these industries, and more women also amplifying the work of CSR-in-Action and all the various female groups represented here. It's very important to continue to work with women networks. I mean, there are so many of them, and WIMBIS also belongs to one or two. We have the Association of Nigerian Women Business Network. So we need to be able to also create awareness within all these associations and all these groups, so that more and more people are roped into the conversation and are sort of amplifying the work that has already been done. And in terms of measurement in future and all the various timelines, we will all be able to put our hands on the plow together and make a lot of impact and a lot of decisions in this area. And so in concluding, I will say this is not the assignment of one. It is not the assignment of two. It is a corporate social responsibility of many, both as individuals, as organizations, as a community, as a nation, as a region, and as a global entity. So I hope that this will begin to help the women in my network to begin to understand that there is a role they can play either in solving the problem, in amplifying the problem, or in seeking ways to support the problem. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, 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 very much, Hansatu. Thank you. As usual, that was very energy filled, and I did listen to I did listen to the conversation. So if I, to just reiterate some of your points, you think that obviously there's opportunity for women to be given opportunity in senior and board level positions, of course, because, decision making has to happen in such a way that people who actually need the intervention can benefit from it. So usually, women tend to understand women issues, not saying that men don't, but it's a different thing when you know how the shoe pinches, and sometimes there's no realization because you don't, the other side doesn't seem to really get to understand that it's there, but the depth of it is important to understand. And there's also opportunity for education on the matters, and how we can be intentional about it. I mean, this forum, for instance, has been a learning opportunity, and there's more room for having those conversations. And then for us, when we have things like our Good Citizen Initiative, we're always saying, what can you do? What can you do? What are the specific things you as an individual can do to contribute? What are the specific things you as a company can do? And if you don't have an understanding of what you might need to do, especially in simple terms like this, it can seem all very complex, and you may not even think to manage your own negative impacts. So this is a fantastic thing that the ministry is doing, and the NDC body and the Undp, because it's one thing to have global policy and then to have national policy. It's another thing to be able to cascade it down to business and to individuals who would do the nitty-gritty. So of course, the big funding issue is also something that would need to be looked into, especially because we agree that there's a lot of innovation that women can lead. You've named quite a few of them. There's also opportunity for incentivization for people who want to get into these kinds of things. Like it's a conversation that one has had with Huzi as well. I mean, how can you encourage women who are already working in this space? So women who are already to some extent consciously or just marginally managing their climate impacts. How can you encourage them to do more? How can you recognize and award their efforts? And again, something that we do with our CAR awards, and that's something that we hope that we can take forward. Recently I saw a video about a man in Uganda who has been able to convert cassava, banana waste into a weaving factory. I don't know if anybody has seen it, And I was thinking, I mean, look at me, I'm thinking, is it possible? Can I perhaps get a collective of women to work on this? Because it seemed pretty straightforward, yet we allow these things to rot away, and we allow them to constitute even extra waste and all of that. So how can people take advantage of this? How can, different companies as well synergize on these kinds of issues? How can the women organizations that are working independently work together? There is opportunity for this as well. And finally, on my part, I see that there's opportunity for an open source portal for imputing climate change information. So much like the climate change registry that Huzi talked about, something that can, a portal where people can impute their own feedback, their own measured performance in very simple terms in order for us to find it a little bit easier to collect information on some of the things that we're doing as a country as part of our national efforts. So we have a couple of questions. This is slated to end in a short while. So if Dami can lead on the questions, we can start with the first question that was asked. Engineer Deyemi or Huzi Michelia, Nere or answer to if you're able to answer the question. I know that the first question was asking if there is a constitutional frame of reference in Nigeria that guarantees equality according to a gender approach. It's quite a broad question. But does anybody want to attempt this? And we also have a poll that's on. So if you want to please access meeting some of our objectives.
Becoming just maybe a straightforward distance. The Constitution under the fundamental rights have provided for freedom against discrimination. And I think this is the ground norm, and you cannot be discriminated based on your sex, and of course, which is the purely definition of the gender we're referring to. And I therefore think that that's the most reference point. Then, of course, there are other pieces of policies that are in place. Like last year, the Ministry of Environment adopted a gender action plan on climate change, which actually tried as much as possible to articulate what the kind of gender balance that it aspires to gain. Of course, in conjunction with the constitutional provision of discrimination against freedom against discrimination on the basis of sex. Of course, that's the most reference points I can point to right now. So I don't know if there is any other question directed at me, but otherwise I want to. Okay, can we take the questions, or I want to make some references, of course, to what Hansatu and Professor Adeyemi and Nere said.
Do you want to do that and then we take some questions?
Okay, yes, I would like to do that if you permit. Thank you very much. And I must thank the other panelists for projecting this issue properly. Thank you, Engineer Adeyemi, for the passion and for the work of your organization. And I think what we have tried to achieve under this particular program is for us to create spaces for the women voices to be heard. And like Hansatu testified, we were the ones who actually went to WIMBIS. We were the ones who went to them to know that, okay, what is it that you are doing and which we can help? And I think your emphasis on all of the issues relating to capacity that needs to be built, on issues relating to the interlinkages between water being a source of solution to virtually all the sectors of the economy. We have included water now as one of the sectors in the NDC. Recall that the 2015 NDC had only 5 sectors, but in this current 2020 NDC, we have 7 sectors. We have included water and waste. And a study is being undertaken by the Stockholm Water Institute with Professor Oladipo to actually see how water can be used both in terms of mitigations in most of the sectors and also in adaptation. So on the issue of course, the needs for access to capital, which is paramount because already most of your members are already doing things, and like you emphasize, most of them could be artisanal and operating at a very low level. And indeed, even the ones that are organized and are working at a big level, the issue of access to finance is difficult because our banks don't have the depth, and they think that these sectors are risks, they are too risky for them to put money in it. So under this program, of course, now there is a support, and a climate finance advisor had been appointed, and he's going to serve for the next 2 years up to the end of 2022. And specifically what this climate finance advisor is supposed to do is to provide advice to people that we say he should provide advice to, particularly in trying to leverage on some of the climate finance that is available, either in form of grants and most of which are actually embedded in most of these multilateral agencies, which in most cases we are unable to access because we do not know the criteria, we do not know that they even exist, and we do not even know how we can go the modality of accessing them. So he's going to help both entities, either individuals and corporate bodies, and of course, indeed government, to also try to structure and see how we can get the lowest hanging fruits, particularly from grants, to help little players to actually strengthen, and then of course, bigger players, see how we can also get some funding for them. And on the issue of innovation and technology, and of course the need to shift, there is a climate innovative hub in Lagos, and actually it is a establishment of the partly government, partly private sector, and funded also by the World Bank. And the idea is to see new inventors and people who have designs, smart designs, and see how these designs can be scaled up and commercialized. So we encourage, I remember when we went to WIMBIS, they were talking of having a particular kind of intervention for promoting young girls or young innovators who actually have ideas that can be scaled up. And I'm sure the Climate Innovative Hub is one of those things. And by the way, our support also for young entrepreneurs who can show that their operations are green will still stand. So certainly we can pick that discussion afterwards. And then I think the other one, which is the last one I want to say before other questions, is to reemphasize and to acknowledge what Engineer Adeyemi says, that government cannot do it alone, private sector cannot do it alone. I'm happy that all the panelists have emphasized on that. And that is why we want to entrench this process. And that was why when we were doing the business roundtables, we said it must be anchored amongst the organized private sector. So that when this program ends, it's no longer, we need to have some buy-in. So that is supported by businesses and organized private sector, is anchored in those their organizations, and there is ownership and buy-in, and of course that's the only way we can ensure is sustainability. So this is a kind of approach we have adopted, so that it's not a government-driven kind of thing. Government only facilitates, and the UNDP also try to support government in trying to facilitate this discussion. But at the end, what we hope should be is that all of this should actually be owned by the organized private sectors or different women groups that are in existence. And then the last issue I want to say is that we still have, I think, in our climate promise, 4 different meetings that we were supposed to hold at suburban areas and see. So we'll discuss with Bekeme, and we'll also discuss with you, and of course, and so to how we can bring women that are not based in the city, but who are particularly in those sectors that are climate impacted and climate sensitive, and see how we can bring them into this discussion and begin to see what is their needs and see how we can structure some kind of capacity building for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Huzi, for those comments. Thank you. So we have, a few minutes left. I will just take a few questions, and we'll go. So Dami, you had some questions, but I'm just going to read some comments. I see Engineer Janet Adeyemi's hand up. Yes. So after this, you get an opportunity to speak. And I see a comment saying women in mining have a lot to contribute to climate change in the area of environmental and land degradation, as this has a lot to do with vegetation, soil, rocks, underground water, etc. If the exploitation and exploration of mineral resources were controlled from the onset, with the inclusion of women taking charge of the environmental aspects, a lot will be achieved to control the climate. It's obvious that there are lots of opportunities for women in the entire mineral value chain, and training of women to oversee the issue of climate change has become necessary. Thank you, CD Salau. I agree with that comment. Engineer DME, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, please, I appreciate coming to this conference, but equally, I don't come to a conference or a meeting like this sitting down, because I found Mr. Uzi Michelia, and I'm happy that comment came from Dr. Salau. You understand? Already, I'm not, there's no competition anywhere. But when you talk about climate change itself, you understand, mining sector alone has the ability to contribute more than 28%, you understand, 28% to the gas emitted, you understand? So, which should be the core area you should focus on when you are talking about women. Again, we are making the mistake. These are people who have direct, so I will be thinking, you know, because I heard in your comments, we've not engaged before, I will think the first thing you understand we'll be looking at is, oh, this sector I quickly want to move in, because I told you that even the policies are the formative stage. You understand? At the formative stage. So instantly, because as we are speaking, the first thing I went to our platform and I said, please, women who are interested in climate change discussion, 36 states are where we are, you understand, including the Federal Capital Territory. Right now, the federal the federal government is trying to create mineral hubs, mining hubs, you understand, in 6 geopolitical zones. So I believe that this is the time. It's not about competition or anything competing for space, but I think that your interest, you understand, your number one interest, government is focusing on just mining and agriculture to drive the African economy. The African Continental Mining Trade Act is coming up, you understand? So there'll be aggressive activity, legally and illegally. So if we really want to get anything, I think you should be interested in the women in mining sector and MAN, Mining Association of Nigeria. That will save Nigeria from a lot of trauma. You understand? And then I suggested something, if you look at my chat box, beyond that, because you cannot say, oh, you want to treat my climate change. What are we treating in climate change if we don't have artificial intelligence, if we don't have smart technology? So I believe that if you equally owe women, you understand, the need to have a round table, you understand, where we bring in experts, you understand, to sit down and discuss and digest, and we now carry this blueprint, just like Ansatu said, women are very good at accomplishing this. Ministry will not, because you are saying, oh, they did this, they did that. Beyond that meeting, what happened? That is the truth. We spend our own money to accomplish things. Ministry will not. They must get allowances also. Abikade, I don't know, maybe somebody is giving you allowances to do all these things. I spend money from my pocket. And Satu, I don't know how much you are getting from government, but you know that if you want to go on from point A to B in government, if you don't get the DT or whatever, you won't move. So if you really want to get results, you understand? That is why I came out, and that is why I came for this particular meeting. And so I need to speak my mind. And at this age, like I said, I want to download and go to my grave empty. Anybody can fall down anytime. So please, let's do the right thing.
Thank you. So Huzi, you're listening. I know we keep on having conversations. We've been in touch for a long time now. We keep on having conversations. Obviously there's opportunity to take specific steps. You're not government, you're not the ministry, but I know that you play very strongly in this space. So obviously the gauntlet has been thrown.
I would like to have your contacts, so if you can, because I'm trying to get, maybe I'll get it from Bikade, your email and everything. So I'll send it to our team leader here and they get engaged with you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think,
Thank you,
organizing a series of engagements. Okay, so we'll take some more questions.
Okay, I think Lizzie's hand
yes.
up.
Lizzie.
So, Lizzie.
Lizzie.
Yeah, so I would allow her to speak.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead, please.
and good day, everyone.
Good day.
Thank you for discussion today on mining. And mining is not only to mine our minerals. We do a lot of mining in agriculture, and agriculture works in the waters, in fishing, and on land, in crops, and we do plantations and all whatnot. What I think is that the involvement of women is so much that women should be the center for the achievement of the NDCs. But you find out that in every sphere, the women are doing the work, but the men are leading. So we have to build the capacity of the woman, because that is what has kept us behind. And again, I discovered that in places like in the north here, women don't speak out. And when a woman speaks out, they feel that it's a crime. And you see women washing and looking, and the men are doing all the games, while the women are the people who are doing the jobs. So what is the plan of this group in mainstreaming the woman, in the achievement of the NDCs, and training the woman, building her capacity to be able to know what she's supposed to do and do it best? This is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any takers here?
Well, like just at the risk of repeating myself, I think all comments have been well noted, particularly from Engineer Ademi, and sometimes it's, you understand this frustration of having to put so much, and then of course little is coming from the side of government. But our commitment under this particular program is for us to continue to create the space and also not only hear you, but also try to get you involved. And like I said at the beginning, what we're trying to do is to get women first, come in, understand what is happening, find your entry point, and then be engaged. We are doing this revision now, and we are trying to, as much as possible, share whatever outcomes that are ongoing as the findings comes in, validate it with you, so that it is not only a government document, but it's a document that everybody has got an opportunity to look at, to address, particularly identify your interest place. What is your interest in that as a Nigerian, or as a group, or as a sector? See how those interests can be represented in the NDC, particularly in terms of creating the access to resources to make your work enhanced. And I think that commitment remains as far as I'm part of this process, and Bekeme, you know about that. And like I said, this is not the end, this is just the beginning. And we have created as much as possible 8 working groups, women working group in all the 7 sectors for the NDC, and 1 that is cross-cutting. So the other cross-cutting one is, assuming you are interested in finance issue, because finance is cross-cutting, assuming you are interested in capacity building, which is cross-cutting, and assuming you are also interested in technology issue, which is also cross-cutting, you could belong to that age group. So, but ordinarily we have seven working groups, all drawn along the thematic NDC sectors, with 1 that is cross-cutting. And we encourage people, and at the end of this, we'll share the template with Bekeme so that she can share to participants. And anyone is open to indicate his interest, which of the working groups you think he can contribute to. And
Absolutely.
When those meetings of those working groups are being called by the ministry and anchored by this program, like I coordinate, we will invite everybody so that everybody's voice is heard. So just to reemphasize that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. As you were speaking, it occurred to me once again why at CSR-in-Action was so committed to promoting the notion of sustainability reporting, which basically covers ESG, economic, social, and governance reporting. And, there's extreme value in that. And that's something that applies across all sectors, across all business types, across all business sizes. First of all, just settling down and thinking, what are the various issues that my business may be contributing to, what are the various areas of improvement, and then commit to monitoring yourself and reporting on it. You know, again, it's a discussion that we've had, and we're saying, okay, how can we collate that information that companies constantly give? And the value of the reporting is that it also helps you to stop and analyze your impact. So you subconsciously do a gap analysis when you have to report. So it's a fantastic opportunity for different organizations. So I think that there's opportunity for developing a set of metrics that people can use to report on, Huzi, for those who might be interested, especially for, you know, the very basic small businesses and, you know, the medium-sized businesses, the large businesses. Many of them already have some sort of measurement criteria. But then again, you would agree that sometimes the required method of collecting that information may differ internationally than from what we require in Nigeria, especially when it comes to environmental data collection. Just wondered, do we have any other question? Because I don't see any hand up. Do we have any other questions?
Well, comments in the Q&A box.
Okay, can you please help with those? I don't think Q&A box.
The one of them.
I have, yeah, Q&A box. No, we're still. You can read it because it's not open for me.
Okay, so I think from Dangwa Danjuma, he says, one key thing around mineral sector is the absence of transparency in contracts with community in the first point of call, where the women can access or engage solid minerals development from the grassroots. This is lacking in most of the communities I've worked with or worked in. It says women are first vulnerable persons on climate change and the associated development around solid minerals, exploration and exploitation. Yeah.
Thank you. And then we have Bolanle Ajayi raising her hand. That would be the final question, and we'll take our closing remarks from Mrs. Abiola Awe, who's the Deputy Director, Department for Climate Change of the Ministry of Environment. So Ms. Bolanle. Did you help them on mute?
No, I've told them. I think they've gone ahead with this.
Okay, because I don't hear anything. Do you want to ask a question? And
was that an error?
okay, so Benjamin Alutoho, we'll take your question then, since are you there?
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I joined in a bit late, but from the conversation I've heard, this is a quality conversation. This is a quality meeting talking about mining in Nigeria. I wonder if we have looked at the aspect of child labor in artisanal mining, because mining in Nigeria is generally at the artisanal level, because Nigeria has not fully developed its mining sector to that level that we can say that it has become so industrialized and all of that. So there is this risk of child labor in artisanal mining. You go to mining sites in Nigeria. I remember in 2011, we did a study for World Bank on child labor in artisanal mining. And I had the privilege of visiting most of the mining sites in Nigeria, particularly in the southern side part of the country. I heard somebody talk about women in mining. That is still a challenge in the south. In the north is child labor in artisanal mining, where children are actively engaged in mining activity, thereby putting a lot of risk. They are out of school, they don't go to school, there is no proper development around the mining site, there is no proper health care for them. So that has put our mineral products at the lowest level at the international market, because at the international market, countries that are using child labor in mining places your product at the very lowest level. Our gold is valueless in the international market, and we have the best gold in Nigeria. So I think it's a subject of discussion. It's something that we should put at the front burner. I have engaged with the Ministry of Mines and pointed out to them certain mine sites which are potential danger for child labor, particularly looking at there's a village in Kebbi State around.
Sorry, Ma, I just wanted to step in here and just remind you that the discussion for today, though, is how women can be supported in order to contribute to Nigeria's achievement of the NDCs. You know, so I understand that that is a challenge. Trust me, I'm sure that those who play in the field understand what the challenges are. Engineer Deyemi, you work with a lot of women in mining. You know, Nere may have witnessed it in the course of her engagement with artisanal miners who may supply her with some of the gold that she uses. But unfortunately, we can't, you know, address that at this meeting because the meeting is focused on climate change. We do have some engagement at CSR-in-Action that we have with global rights, where we're looking at issues of human rights, because that's more of a human rights issue and labor issue. So it's not, sadly, it's not something that we can address here, but we do have people from the Ministry of Environment here, and I'm sure that they're taking note of that comment. So thank you again for that. So unfortunately, that would be the final question that we can take today. We've got 4 minutes to the end of our meeting, and so we'll use this opportunity to, at CSR-in-Action, thank everybody. Thank you to our partners at Women in Business, WinBiz, Women in Mining, and every other person that's taking time out to be here. Thank you to our speakers as well. And I'll just invite one of the authors of this event, Mrs. Abiola Awe, Deputy Director, DCC, to give us closing remarks. You may continue to send us messages afterwards at CSR-in-Action, and we'll provide that email address in the chat box for you to send messages to. Thank you. Mrs. Awe, are you there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been a keen listener to this event. Very fruitful deliberations and learning time, listening to the presenters. So on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, the Department of Climate Change, I want to appreciate every presenter. I want to appreciate the organization, CSR-in-Action, and the moderator and facilitator. I also want to thank the Vice President of WinBiz, Barrister Huzi. I also want to thank you for the great presentation, and also thank our Honorable Engineer Adeyemi. You've been very inspiring. We look forward to future engagements with you. And on this note, I'd like to say thank you again, and see you on the next forum. God bless you.
Thank you, Madam. So I'll just use the opportunity to share the results from the poll. I don't know if everybody has seen them. Do you see the results of the poll? So basically, we asked 3 questions. I'm now aware of the role women may play in helping Nigeria attain its climate change goals, and 69% say yes. Some people say, well, somewhat, and then one person says no. I wonder why. You said no. I'd like to see your reason why. And then I commit to carrying out activities that will help Nigeria attain its climate change goals. Now, this is our duty and responsibility as Nigerians, as enshrined in the Constitution, and a whopping 99% say yes, they're happy to, and 8% say, well, Nigeria needs to convince me a little bit more. And then the final question was that, I'm satisfied with the learnings from this webinar, and cumulatively we have about 95% say yes, and yes to a large extent. And then, some people are not, 2 people are not so pleased. Again, would like to get feedback from you as to your specific thoughts. I'm sure that my colleague may have shared our email address in the box, but please go ahead and send us an email at workshops@csr-in-action.org, workshops@csr-in-action.org. My name is Bekeme, I'm Chief Executive and Founder, and I've had a wonderful experience engaging with all of you. Thank you to my colleague Dami and my other colleagues who could be a part of this. I hope you all have a great afternoon, and we'll continue the conversation as promised. Take care, everyone. And bye-bye.